My friends, this morning, this week, marks the 198th anniversary of the building of this church. So we have been standing on the shoulders of some great people for a very, very long time. And so I've invited John Loge, who has agreed to be chair our stewardship effort this year, to be with us today and to offer words. So John, welcome. And now, may the words of our hearts.
I remember.
You did it. Good,
Yes,
good this
yes.
time. He didn't have it last time.
May the meditations of my heart and the words of my mouth be acceptable to God. I got it. Thank you. A few weeks ago, Father Ron asked me if I would be steward. I didn't know what that was. I had to look it up. There's a steward on a ship. There's a stewardess, at least in the old days, on airplanes. And sometimes the steward, keeps things, takes care of the resources of some place. That was fine. What do I have to do? Write a letter. So I wrote a letter. I had to write a letter, which I wrote. You'll get next week or sometime soon. And then the newsletter came out, and it said I was on Thursday, and it says I'm chair of the stewardship committee. There is no committee. So, and I don't want to be chair. So we're going to be the committee. All of you are the committee, okay? We're all on the stewardship committee. And that'll make it easy for us to work together. Now, full disclosure, the steward and his committee, it's about pledging. So you're going to get a pledging letter in the mail, as I said, pretty soon. Now, pledging and the money from pledging and the money from all the hard work you do on the dinners and the special events keeps the lights on and the door open to the church and the hall and pays the salaries of the staff of the church. So that's where the pledges go. And that's where the funds from the events, the Pumpkin Festival, for instance, that's where they go. So I'm going to take, as members of the committee, we have to keep this in mind. So, the prompt I'm going to reflect rather than preach. And the prompt comes from this little envelope. Have you read the words on it ever? I only asked that because recently I read the words on it, and they were the envelope sitting there all this time. I never read the words on it. And the words are from Matthew. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Serious business. Now, treasure we know, that's the easy one. Treasure is money, of course. It's also time. Think of the hard work that you do around the church. Time, energy, talents that are contributed to the church, all of that. Those are the treasures that we have to offer. Now, heart is more complicated. So I want to reflect on heart, because our treasures need to come from our heart, or at least our heart needs to like them. So it's in the heart that somebody has, that's where we have our values. What we value the most is in our hearts. A good example, for instance, and relationship between heart and treasure, think of your family, for instance. So clearly your heart is in your families. And clearly your treasure, your time and your effort and your energy are spent on your families. I remember when I was sent away to boarding school from Southern California when I was 14. So I'm in New Hampshire by myself, and in the mail comes a package from my Grandma Tim. And in the box are persimmon cookies. I don't know if you've ever had persimmon cookies. Maybe it's a Western thing. But persimmon cookies don't travel well. So when I opened the box, it was just cookie crumbles. And I couldn't give them away. And persimmon cookies are a diuretic, so I couldn't eat them all. Then later, when I'm a young man, I receive in the mail an envelope from my mother with $25 check in it, with a little note that said, "I'm sure you have some use for this." So we know how those the treasures followed those hearts. And heart is a complicated word, so I looked up various ways hearts are used. We're supposed to believe in God with all our hearts, for instance. Follow your heart. You gotta have heart. Their heart was in it. Their heart wasn't in it. Get to know your heart. Listen to your heart. It's a feeling. It's a vague, you know what it is, but you really can't say what it is. The experience of having your heart working, we know. And it's connected to the treasures. So I'm going to tell a couple stories to try to give myself as an example of how the treasure follows from the heart, or if you look at the treasure, you can see where their heart came from, or what is in their heart. I had a grandson born. After I got used to being a grandfather, I wanted to have Grandpa's place. I had one when I was a boy. And it was in my heart. I had then had 3 grandchildren, so I bought a little place on Amston Lake, not on the water, but nearby, and they would come. For years they came, until they got into middle school. It was wonderful. So I put my treasure into this little place. I retired, and then I came and lived. I live there now permanently. At the time I bought it, I was working in New Haven, and it was a little, cottage for weekends and such with the family. So then I wanted to be. I bought the little cabin because I wanted to be. There's Ubuntu, and Donna knows this from a reading group, book group, which I sat in on. And there's a saying, it's an African religion or philosophy, that I am because we are. There's some versions, I am because you are, that sort of thing, but it's I am because we are. I wanted to be where there was a we, so I could be an I. And when I bought this little place at the lake, it's in a community. It has a clubhouse. There's people gather at the beach. It's not church, but there's a relation. I wanted a little more than that. I wanted to be part of a larger community. Hebron. I grew up in a church, Episcopal, so I came down here one day to see what it was like. And I sat here and I learned a lot about you. I know more now because I've been here for a couple years, just by being in the church one day. So the beauty of it struck me, beginning with what the parishioners were doing. The decorations up there, look at the beautiful wrap around the cross, the whole presentation of the wrap around the cross. Look how things are cared for that way. There's a very nice piano and great music. The organ and the choir was, I came to the 10 o'clock service, there was music, I like music. The stained glass windows, and they point up, which is what they do in the Gothic area, up to God, and the Gothic design. But down at the bottom, of course, are names. People who, as Father Ron just said, people who built this place after the other one burned down, and who sustained it all those years, and now it's our turn. And then I saw the little doors at the end of the pews there, the old-fashioned doors that make the noise, and you open the door and you go in, and you have your own little private place behind your own little door. And there's my heart like that, because I have my own thoughts and I have my own little door. It's like having your own room. And sometimes you share your room with other people. I like that everybody prayed together loudly and sang loudly. And when prayers were asked, people would pray for somebody. It was an active group of people who were committed to this place, and I decided I would start coming. So I visited Ron, I called the office and said, I think I'd like to be a member. I learned there's no such thing, really. There's no such title. But why don't you come and meet me Thursday at 2 or something? So I came over, and Ron told me the stories of everything the church does. The door, and I'll get to that. That's the next thing I'm going to talk about. The door of a church works in both directions. We keep the lights on and the doors open so people can come in. Also, the door opens out. And I learned that the people in this church, went out the door into the community and did things. I'm just beginning to learn all the things that are done by the members of this church, individually, in small groups, or putting up pumpkin festivals, making gardens, painting things, having church school, but they go out into the community, the affordable housing, what we do in Willimantic for coats and soup kitchens, all of that. You know more about that than I do. That appealed to me about the church. I wanted to be part of that. My heart wanted to belong, not just to the community of churchgoers, but to a town. I wanted to be where I was, be part of it. And this was a way to do that. Now, the pledges keep the lights on and the door open. The pledges also keep this community alive. I mean, that's not the right way to put it. It makes this community possible, the opportunity for this, by the community, I mean those of us in this room. So that not only do we have a building and activities that we can do in our town, but we have a group of people, us, and we can come and see each other, walk in the doors, come and see each other, at least every Sunday, but if we do things together, we start doing things together. This I wanted. My heart wanted this. I wanted to belong to such a thing. After church that day, I went into the hall, the rec hall, and Phelps Hall, and somebody came up to me, I won't call them out, and said, you're new here, and we introduced ourselves. He said, you'll like it here. The people are hardworking and very nice. And the people here are hardworking and very nice. And I wanted to be such a people. So I decided, my heart was telling me, and so I decided to put my treasure here. Slowly, the kinds of treasure that we can give in the ways that we can. Now, I understand that there are a lot of places where we're attached with by our hearts. Our hearts are attached to places. We have a lot of places where we can put our treasure, and we have to, like our family, for instance, families, grandchildren, all those sorts of things, people who are sick. We do a lot of things, so our treasure is put in a lot of places. And I do that too. But putting treasure here is what I decided to do. Put some time and energy into it. And I'm glad to be here. So I'm going to end on hope. I hope for St. Peter's. I do. I have hope for St. Peter's. St. Peter's thrives now. Let's thrive in the future. Here's a quotation. If you forget it, it's on, I gave a copy of it to Father Ron. It's in his office. He'll proudly show it off to you. It's from a poet named Seamus Heaney. Here it goes. Hope is not optimism, which expects things to turn out well, but something rooted in the conviction that there is good worth working for. And lastly, when you get the letter, you'll see at the end, I'm going to read you the little paragraph at the end. As a congregation, we have hope for what we can do as we go out into our communities. We have hope for what we can do together for our church community. We have hope for what we can do for each other in need and in celebration. Let's keep the porch light on and the door open so that St. Peter's can continue to do its good work, bringing us together as it brings us to God. It's a hope. Thank you. I'm sure there's a light.